It's guy love, don't compromise.
Hi, welcome back to the great linear A Song of Ice and Fire reread. We are the Vassals of Kingsgrave. We are an offshoot of our Liege Lords, a podcast of Ice and Fire. So, in this there will be no show spoilers, because that was already wrecked, and there won't be any Winds of Winter spoilers, and all opinions expressed here are those of the individual, not of the group. Everyone here is capable of forming their own thoughts, so don't worry. I'm your host today, Sarah, aka Lady Weaver, on the podcast of Ice and Fire forums, and I am joined by Abby.
Hi, Abby, or Daceymormont on the forums.
Jock.
Hello, Jock, Mono Jock 2, and I don't think I'm capable of forming my own thoughts.
Oh no. Are you mind controlled? We'll find out later. And Kevin.
Hey, this is Kevin, also known as Gaiden on the forums.
And Michael.
Hey, Khal Wadege on the forums.
And later on we may or may not be joined by Hannah, also known as Shadow Baby on the forums, and Zander, the Lord Baron on the forums. Okay. So, last time on the reread, episode 81 of the reread that was, the chapters covered the 18th to the 24th of April 300, and that was done under Casey's crew. So those chapters were A Dance with Dragons, Melisandre, A Piece for Crows, Brienne. I really should have put in the number there. And A Dance with Dragons, Jon Con 1. Today we are picking up one day after the events of Jon Con 1, and we'll be discussing the events from the 25th to the 30th of April. So those are the Wayward Bride, that's Asha 1 from A Dance with Dragons, Jon 7 from A Dance with Dragons, and The Reaver, also known as Victarion 2 from A Feast for Crows. So Asha 1, A Dance with Dragons, also known as the Wayward Bride. So all of the events of this one takes place on the 25th of April 300, and that, I believe, is the recap done by Michael.
No, it's me. I have it.
Damn it! We just spoke about it, and I just read it as well. Okay, so done by Kevin. Thanks. Take it away.
Okay, so it's really hard to summarize this chapter because it's kind of something we've seen already. Here we have another Greyjoy in a northern castle with no allies and no way out. This time it's Asha Greyjoy, and she's at Deepwood Motte. She gets a letter from Ramsay saying, "Your friends are dead, and can you please go home?" But she can't go home because Euron sits on the sea stone chair, and he's married her off to someone else, and it's just not a good idea to go back to Pike because she'll probably be killed. Asha doesn't know if she should fight or flee. Her pride says to stay and fight. She wrings her hands for a little bit, has a couple of thoughts back to her childhood, and then she and Carl the maid get into this ridiculous faux rape scene, and I just don't need it. It's just more of the awful, awful sexual writing that George R. R. Martin does that leads me to believe that he actually masturbates to his own writing. But after that, she, again, struggles with the idea of whether or not she should stay or she should go. Then some for her scouts spot someone who they think is a Northman on the grounds, and they torture him and find out that there are more out there. So Asha finally decides in the last minute to flee to her ships. The Ironborn attacked by some more men they think are Northmen. There's another ridiculous sex scene where one of the North women decides she needs to fuck because she needs to fuck right now before she dies. It needs to be the last thing she does on Earth. And so she grabs someone and goes off into the woods. There's this big dumb battle, and it's kind of like Lord of the Rings where Legolas and Gimli are killing people, and they're counting off how many people they kill. But this time it's Asha and some other guy. The naked Iron Woman comes out from having sex, and she picks up a sword, and she goes out there and she starts fighting because that's something that happens. At the end, they're overwhelmed, and Asha finds out that it's not a bunch of Northmen. I guess they are, but it's Northmen with Stannis, and that's the end.
Great. I'm so happy someone else got the Lord of the Rings reference. I was just like, Gimli? Is that you?
Yeah, it's just so weird. He doesn't really he does pop culture references, but this one was really recent, so it's kind of awkward.
Yeah, I like it when they're subtle. The World of Ice and Fire had the Muppets in them. I was just like, George, don't do that.
That broke me.
Nice to know what he watches. a true fanboy.
I don't think this is an actual reference, but Asha was speaking about being attacked by Shlobbly, and I just thought of the Knights of Knee.
So I thought it was a Shakespearean thing.
Yeah, it made me think of Macbeth. The woods are coming to Castle Macbeth? I can't remember. Yeah.
It made me think of Tamora Pierce's series, The Linus Quartet, Book 4, where the king literally has the power to make the trees move, and like trees and forests move against his enemies. So, yeah, that's what I thought of.
So, we know this chapter takes place almost at the same time as the Jon chapter, because they both get that letter from Ramsay, written in Theon's blood, which is wonderful.
And it also comes with a piece of prints. You get a little bit of leather in there.
Ugh.
Okay,
Nice.
I'm wondering, who else did he send that to? Because, like, in his letter, he said, like, he sent it to multiple people. So, like, who else was he sending it to besides, like, Asha? And then, like, he sent one to Rob, but that was, like, 2 books ago.
I think one might have gone to Torrens Square, because I think the Ironborn either hold it or it's about to fall. But yeah, that's where...
Yeah, but the guy who trained Theon how to fight.
Dagmar, yeah.
Yeah, the cleft jaw.
Now, is this the same letter that Rob got, or is it a different one with just more Theon included?
I mean, it's different, but I was just like, I know he sent Theon's flesh to Rob, so I'm just like, who else would he send it to besides, like... Because he said he did. It's like, who else wants it?
Would it just be more to people who knew Theon? Because that would make sense, like, knew/cared about Theon?
It could be all to the Northern Lords just as a sign that, you know, he's taking down the Ironborn. That's the sort of agenda they're pushing.
But the thing is, like, what's to say it is actually Theon's skin? Like, it could actually be anyone's skin in theory.
I guess it's style over substance. It just looks cool. It's a piece of human skin or whatever.
There's not much Theon left to share, so it's probably not Theon.
Because it could literally be anyone.
But it probably is Theon, so...
So, Christopher Botley comes to see Asha, and I think some Chekhov's gun planting of important information happens in this conversation. They talk about Torrig the Latecomer, and how that was overturning a previous Kingsmoot, and then Bloody Asha gets so excited she kisses him. What did you guys think this meant?
Like Theon, I feel like it's so obvious that it might
It is
like
incredibly obvious.
yeah. So that I was wondering then if Theon is the only one that's eligible because he wasn't present, because like she also mentions that she has those like distant Greyjoy cousins, and so like are they not eligible because they were around for the first Kingsmoot but they didn't declare?
They're probably not important enough. Like,
and
Theon obviously is the prince and the heir,
and
so
he's
he
the
gets a
heir,
say.
which is the same as Torrig, because Torrig was the heir and he was uninformed and didn't know about that it had happened, which Theon doesn't know it has happened, whereas most of the people from the Iron Islands know that it did happen or was going to happen. So
Yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to come up with like, because I just feel like it's too obvious. I don't know. Like I feel like George is usually a little more subtle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because I remember going into A Dance with Dragons and thinking Theon's gonna die, and his lifespan is not long. But yeah, now this makes me think, does he have a lot more to do, or yeah,
is it just
see.
enough
I
that
hope
he
not.
goes and gets the kingdom, like he gets it, and then he could die, and Asha or someone else takes his place as his heir after? So whether it's
I
he
have a very
doesn't end up
strong
with it
feeling
in the
that,
end, but
yeah, Asha will be taking over the Iron Islands in the end game. But yeah, that's just my feeling.
whether like Theon gets it and then like stands down from his position as king and then gives it to Asha, because man, boy's been through enough. Like
Theon certainly won't be making any heirs.
yeah, like literally. So Asha or whoever else he decides would be his heir. So
That was another thing that I noticed, because like this is probably like so minor, but Asha mentions that she like will need to have her moon tea, and then like it's never brought up again. And I'm like, is potentially Asha could be producing an heir, but like I doubt it. But it was just like something I noticed.
I know.
Yeah,
this is true,
other
but
people have noticed that.
I think she goes off to the fire, like, after that, and I'm just like, is it off screen that she does it? So, like, she thinks about it, and then, like, there's a break, and then the chapter continues, doesn't it?
No, she mentions she has to go buy it. She doesn't have any on her.
Well, that's a very bad plan, man. Like, girl, get your shit together.
I think it might just be to show that Asha is a sexually active woman and is taking contraception like a sensible lady. That's just who she is.
However, she does not have enough with her when she does have a steady sexual partner for the last 6 years and doesn't have any of her contraception, but she also does not want to get pregnant.
I think no, she says she just needs to brew it. So she has like the tea leaves or whatever.
Well, in that case, it could have happened off screen. I thought you said buy it, and I'm just like, well, in that case, what are you doing?
Good on.
Did anyone have anything else to mention about it?
Well, although it sets a legal precedent, I don't think the Ironborn are ones to have faith in the rule of law. So
Yeah, I don't remember in the story, did it say that he had to rally the people, get the people's approval, though? Because
it was the people were already against the person who took role of leadership, and the priests were against him. His own captains were against him, the people were against him, which Aeron is against Euron.
Yeah, because everyone kind of hates Theon, but
between the two, I think they'd go with
Yeah.
Euron, though.
yeah, but right now the Ironborn are in favor of Euron, so something would have to happen to switch that.
But Aeron went underground. Wait, this is still the Victarion chapter. But Aeron went underground, and it was supposedly planning on going to the small folk on the islands and persuading them to overthrow Euron.
Okay.
But yeah, I do agree that it's a very flimsy legal precedent, and what it does need is the public opinion, or even just the opinion of the lords, to turn against Euron before this precedent can be invoked.
Which, to be very honest, might happen, but at the moment Euron's wining and dining the lords, so...
It might just be what the Dampere says. Like, he keeps saying over and over, his famous saying, no godless man may sit the seed stone chair. I keep wanting to say seed throne. But I feel like Euron is going to have to do something that is extremely against... I'm not sure what the actual word for, like, being anti-drowned god, but he's going to do something that everyone's going to say, whoa, 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 that's not what we do. And that's going to turn the tide from him to anyone else.
He's already doing some of that stuff in the Victarion chapter. Man, we keep bringing up the Victarion chapter because they're so close.
Well, they are related, so...
They are. They are. Like, all of these chapters are very much related, and it's a very good grouping of chapters for a reread episode. So, good job.
Yeah. Well, that's why I guess what Aaron is doing is really important, because it's the not small folk, the vassals, I guess, or the lords, are more, they can be more flimsy about their, like, heresy towards the drowned god, but the small folk only have the drowned god as proof that their lives are not horrible and everything, so it would probably be the small folk that would get the most upset about Euron's, like, heresy.
And as well, the small folk didn't vote for Euron because only the lords voted in the Kingsmoot and the captains. The small folk, the regular people working day to day, had no vote at all. So quite possibly they were already or would already be rather against Euron, or just like, why does this even matter? So, are we going to talk about Khal the Shy Maid?
Khal the Maid?
Yeah.
He's cool. So you guys don't like this sex scene?
Not at all.
No. At all.
I would
no.
say of
No.
all the sex scenes, this one is maybe the closest to being erotic. But that's not saying much, because George's sex scenes are terrible.
I think the thing is, we are seeing it from the woman's perspective, and she is getting aroused by it, so it can be seen as like, okay, so she is aroused by it, hopefully she doesn't view it as rape. Like, she clearly does not view it as rape, because, like, us reading it, at the start I'm just like, bro, what even?
I very strongly get the impression that this is just their dynamic. This has happened multiple times. It feels like the rhythm of a sexual couple.
And as well, it's they've been together the last 6 years. So obviously this has happened before and they both enjoy it and get off on it, which is why afterwards she goes and lies down with him and doesn't walk away or storm away or like have a minor panic attack.
Well, and she's the captain, of course, of this. Well, she's the lord of Deepwood, so she could have him executed. So it's not like Asha's. Yeah.
She's the one with power in the relationship.
My issue is not with the scene itself. It's just, reading all these sex scenes over again, it's kind of, there's always this element of like resistance on the woman's part. I feel like there are a bunch of sex scenes in these novels where the woman is like, no, wait, stop, and the guy is more forceful. So it's just really uncomfortable. It's like, I feel like this is more so Martin's fantasy of a woman being reluctant to get into a hot and heavy situation. And it's really uncomfortable to be inside his head in that sort of way.
Bina actually made a note of how this scene combined with the Jaime and Cersei set scene makes her think that he has very weird views of sex and that he doesn't think that either of these scenes are rape and that they might only just be rough sex in his mind. So he's normalizing it. And then we as readers go back and read it and are just like, are you sure?
Well, I think this scene contrasts very clearly to the dynamic between Jaime and Cersei. That's meant to come across as toxic and wrong, because there's many times that Jaime goes, Cersei says no, and then Jaime keeps going, and then she says yes. We see that multiple times, and again, like, that's incest, and it's meant to be an uncomfortable relationship. But here, I never thought that it came across as rape. It comes across as just a sexual couple just doing their thing.
No, I never described it as rape. I just said like a faux rape scene, like they're playing out a sexual assault, and that's, again, it's not the characters, it's the writer that I'm concerned with.
Yeah, it's a rape fantasy. That's what it is.
Yeah. I hate all these sex scenes. I really do.
Yeah, it's definitely a weakness of George as a writer. Whenever I read the phrase, he worried at her breast, or he worried her nipple, I'm just like, ugh.
There's so much nipple play, and it's like I don't want to know what you like as a writer to do in your bedroom. I don't need it.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he was a little less hands-on and he just described it in less detail. The scenes could be maybe as effective, but yeah, I don't know.
And like he sort of like insists on it because he believes that if you write violence, you should be comfortable with reading or writing sex scenes. Like I think there's a scene in Clash of Kings where Daenerys is going into Qarth, and there are the different walls surrounding Qarth, and there's one with like brutal violence on it, and Daenerys is kind of like, oh, that's okay. And then she goes into another ring of the city, and there's like all these sex scenes, and she kind of feels uncomfortable. But then he writes like, if she is fine with violence, she should be fine with sex. And I don't think they're the same, because violence it's awful, it's graphic, it's mature. But then again, sex, I feel like it's more personal. When a writer is writing a sex scene, it's hard to separate what they like entertainment-wise from what they like to do sexually. And I keep saying it, but I really don't need to know what he beat offs to.
I also think it's just something about, like, the language, because, like, there's no way to read, or there's, like, any words that you use to describe a sex scene, they always just come off as so uncomfortable because of the language that's used. Mm-hmm. I've heard, like, people that, I can't speak for myself because English is my first language, but people that English is their second language probably, like, would not find these sex scenes as uncomfortable just because, like, the vocabulary is doesn't have as much connotation as it does in English, or in their native language, I guess, because I don't know, the vocabulary used, there's no like sexy vocabulary that you can really use.
No,
especially all these old English terms.
No, a lot of vocabulary about sex are also used as swear words nowadays. Like, most of it. Like, fuck is a swear word. Cunt, also a swear word. Dick, dickhead, swear word. Like, a lot of it's, like, has double meanings. And
yeah, we get that in this chapter, too. Like, I didn't want to say it, but like Asha had that thought where like she didn't know who had the cock and who had the cunt, and I was like, ah.
And then later on, it's also used as a swear word. Like,
yes, exactly.
someone
The guy's
calls
just
her
screaming at her.
a cunt. Yeah, it's.
I do like that line she has when she thinks, is it this chapter? Or maybe it's the later one, where she's like, men always use this word to insult us when it's the one thing they value.
I think it's
that's
later.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You can't talk about it.
That's an interesting line. So it says a bit about Asha.
So spoken. Do we want to talk about Asha's relationship with Khal? Like, apart from the sex scene, and how she would actually ideally like to marry him because she has, I quote, a shy smile, strong arms, clever fingers, and 2 sure swords. What more could any woman want? She'd have married Khal, and gladly, but she was Lord Balon's daughter, and he was common born, the grandson of a thrall, too low-born for me to wed, but not too low-born for me to suck his cock.
Nice. It seems like a healthy relationship. They get along. Yeah.
They're obviously both consenting to it as well.
Yeah, it comes across as one of the more healthy relationships. Seems nice. We know that Khal is one of the, I think, 7 people who survives of Asha's Ironborn. So yeah, they still have a chance.
So one of the themes in the books is like love is the death of duty, the death of honor. We hear that from Maester Aemon in the first book. And I like how Asha seems to adhere to that. Like, she understands that she loves Khal and she would love to marry him, but she's not going to pull a Rhaegar and just like run off. She's not going to pull like a Robb and run off and get married and ruin everything. So I really believe that her sticking to that theme kind of not secures her survival, but gives her a better prospect, because Robb didn't, and Robb is dead.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if she comes back to the Iron Islands with a lot more political clout, which I suspect she will in some way. What her marriage options will be then. Yeah, guess we'll have to wait and see. Because I feel like if she was in a very strong position, she might be able to get away with marrying Khal. But yeah.
I would have thought that the Iron Islands would have been a lot more accepting of the common folk and a marriage between the two, providing that the commoner proves their worth in battle, and potentially he could have been given command of a ship and be a ship's captain, because that is a respected position in their society.
I think it's more that marriages are seen as political, and if you're common born, you don't have anything to offer politically. It's not about passion. It's a good trade deal. So, especially
to Asha, who's essentially a princess on the Iron Islands.
Yeah, if it was maybe like a vassal of the Greyjoys, it would probably be more accepted. But because it's Asha, she needs to have like a match that's beneficial.
I'd also like to say I think Asha is a very, very good commander and very fair in how she treats people.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence that her crew is functions really well, and they're very close and stuff. Like it mentions, they all share their food with the people that like weren't able to get food, and they all trust each other, which is very different from Theon's crew when he was commanding.
Very different. And as well, she even treated the prisoners at Deepwood Motte relatively well. Like, they could have been treated a lot worse than they were.
I like how she really cares for that one baby. She's like, you better take care of him. He better not die. I'm like, that's sweet.
And she takes into consideration that she would have liked to take the baby back to its mother, but was just like, it wouldn't last the journey, so I'll leave it here.
Yeah.
Considerations of the baby's health, and was just like, okay, best thing for it.
Something I was confused about, though, with like how she has the respect of her team, is the fact that she mentions that before she would trade, she didn't like rave, she traded. And so like, isn't Asha technically paying the gold price to get things then? And wouldn't that be looked down upon in Ironborn society?
I feel like there's a bit of a double standard when it comes to these Reavers. Like, you do pillage, but like, you do need to get supplies so you can pillage. And I think that iron price comes down to jewelry that you can wear. So you can't buy jewelry to wear, you can only take it off dead corpses. But like, if you need, water for your ship or food, they make an exception, like it's an expression that they don't follow to the letter. That's my impression.
Okay, that makes sense.
Probably be
They're full of shit.
trading things that they have paid the iron price for in the first place, and then trade those things for goods that they need to survive. So like they are, but not when they're trading things for it.
But yeah, you see, like, there's trading ships that are coming to the Iron Islands, and, like, they're obviously coming there because they can trade. So, yes, I do. The Iron Islands are kind of full of shit. There's a level of hypocrisy here.
Yeah, because what I was thinking of is when people from the Iron Islands leave to go to the mainland, they usually grieve and, like, rape and pillage. But it seems like Asha, like, she does not do that at all. She trades with the people when she, like, goes to the different areas. So it was just kind of, basically it was like everyone's full of shit.
There's a line in a previous chapter, I think, where she talks about how she went to the Stepstones and she was reading, but against pirates, which I think is also another clue that she's a bit more humanist and enlightened than the run-of-the-mill Ironborn. Like, she's not going after defenseless people. She doesn't view that as, like, a good thing. Like, she's Ironborn, but she's going after people that are going to fight.
That stand at least a little bit of a chance, and rather than just going and killing everyone, like slaughtering defenseless people.
But yeah, it's definitely some murky grey territory with Asha and how she fits in with the whole Ironborn philosophy of raping and pillaging.
So, I also think that Christopher Botley is actually very good for Asha, because he's not just a yes man and actually makes her think and challenges her. And like, if she is good counsel, he is good counsel and thinks about things differently.
He makes a very practical point to Asha, who is being a bit prideful and headstrong, and I think she just doesn't want to think about the future because her prospects are so bad. But Christopher is like, hey, we've basically lost. We need to, become traders or do something else. Very pragmatic. And I feel if they didn't get interrupted by this invasion, Asha might have come around to this idea.
To be honest, it's a very good idea, and it is something that they already have the resources for as well. Do it.
And really at this point, it's the only option they have left.
But there is the thought of, like, who would trade with them in the first place, with them being Ironborn, because they couldn't go to, the Iron Islands and trade with them. Most of Westeros probably would not trade with them. They would have to cross the seas and go to the Slavers' Bay.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept of whether, if they take their longships to somewhere like Old Town, whether they'd be allowed to trade, because, as long as they're not attacking them, but then these ships are probably going to be used for reaving. I kind of get the sense that Old Town does trade with them, and then the longships go reaving somewhere else and then come back. But again, this hasn't been stated clearly.
Possibly, whether it's the Ironborn do their reaving, take all of their spoils back to the Iron Islands, and then the traders go there and go between Old Town and the Iron Islands, trading that way as well. We can speak about how Asha is now officially married, even though she wasn't there.
I like how they used a seal. That was funny. Made me laugh.
I'm really curious about
it. I hope Eric did not insist on a consummation when he was told that they had a seal at a wedding. Yeah.
I'm just really curious about Ironborn wedding practices. Like, I don't know. I want to know what they do. I wish. I don't know. I just kind of. I like
the. They lived in the sea together.
They'll throw you off a cliff.
They go for a sunset paddle. Just go for a swim, come back, and just like, we're married. Woo!
Instead of throwing flowers down the aisle, they throw, like, seaweed.
No, they throw axes.
The whole wedding
I would have
stinks.
thought, I was just like, seashells, and you're just like, no, seaweed, and I'm like, oof, you're just slimy. And then axes, wow, that's a bloody wedding.
God, they're so stupid.
The Ironborn? Or
yes.
Right now?
No, the Ironborn. I don't know how they exist. Yeah, I wonder, like, does she have to kill the seal to, like, get an actual divorce from Eric?
Why take it out on the seal? Just kill the old dude, and he's probably gonna die anyway, and I'd probably just marry someone else and be like, that wasn't me, go fuck yourselves.
That's just so insulting. I'm pretty sure he didn't have to use a seal to do the wedding. It's just...
No, it was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, like, Euron had it to demoralize her, and as well, it's to make Eric Ironmaker more supportive of Euron, anyway, because her now husband was one of the people who wanted to be king in the King's Moot.
Yeah, it's a clever move by Euron.
It's very clever.
Or maybe the seal was actually Eric Ironmaker's love, and this has all been an elaborate ruse to marry the seal.
No, actually, there's a mythical being that seals turn into humans when they come up on land.
Oh yeah, the Selkie.
Yes.
And if you steal their skin, they have to stay human forever. Yeah, I think the seal also was, it could have also been, or in addition, part of, because Eric, whatever his last name was, did oppose Euron originally. The seal's kind of like, I'm going to try to appeal to you with, get you on my side with Asha, but also, you need to be punished in a way for your dissent, I guess. So the seal's kind of, because it makes him into a joke as well.
I feel like it's a joke at Asha, not Eric.
It is, because Asha put in a jibe against Eric at the King's Moot, saying, mocking him for not standing, and told him to stand to take his throne, and then he couldn't stand up. So I think it is more a joke at Asha's expense, and that's why it was to Eric Ironmaker rather than anyone else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Worse for Asha. Euron's being clever boy, so...
He really is, because Eric Ironmaker, like, he's on his death chair. Like, he can't last very long. So I guess he's just like, you can marry him on these, so what? Like, in 2 months, you're going to be dead from a massive heart attack. But it gets him Eric's forces. So, yeah, that's very smart.
Yeah.
This is a running theme we'll be seeing in these chapters, is Euron, the way he gets power and loyalty from his subordinates.
I love good, clever villains who, like, manipulate people. I find them so interesting, so yay. So much fun. Okay. Does anyone have anything else to say for the most part of this chapter?
I had some stuff on the echoes of Theon's final chapter in Clash of Kings, which was mentioned during the chapter summary, but I just thought it was interesting because the end of the chapter is really similar to the end of Theon's final chapter in Clash of Kings, because it's an image of a burning black beast. Theon, it's a horse, and Asha, it's the stag, and the red god, or whatever his name is. And I just thought that was like really interesting, that there's a lot of parallels between the two chapters. This was just another thing that I thought was interesting, because there's so much parallel. So like when the Ironborn are fighting, like they are really out of their element because they're in the trees and they're like on horseback. But when Theon was doing the Battle of the Whispering Wood, he performed really well in that, and it just kind of shows the difference between the two.
And how Theon grew up in in the woodland environment, so he knows how to fight in it and was trained to, whereas Asha hasn't. She's grown up fighting on ships and on the shore. Yeah,
and it's just the Ironborn are just completely unprepared for to deal with the mainland in the way that they want to.
Which is why Theon would have probably been a good king, because he's half and half. Like, he can steer a ship and he can also lead an army through the woods. So that's a really good point.
Unfortunately, though, now everyone hates him. But
But the thing is, people might not hate him towards the end of it, because he's gotten freed with Stannis now. He does have a chance to redeem himself in the last 2 books, and to actually make a name for himself.
Yeah, because he can do what Asha wants to do, but she's still not equipped. Like, she's still ill-equipped to do what she wants to do with the Ironborn.
The thing is, like, it's because she's never lived that way, so she doesn't quite understand it, and she doesn't understand how to use the forest and your environment, because the environment is so different. She doesn't know how to use it to her advantage, unlike the people she is facing, whereas Theon, who has grown up in it, does know how.
Yeah, so they complement each other. Like, they both have good attributes that are opposite of each other that would work together if they both ruled or whatever.
They could do
So
that.
also concerning Theon and Asha. So when I first read, going back to A Clash of Kings, one of Theon's last interactions with Asha, I was obviously reading from Theon's perspective, and I thought Asha was like mocking Theon and like she was kind of a bitch when she comes to Winterfell. But I remember reading this chapter for the first time and being like, oh, no, she wasn't. She actually cared about Theon and wanted him to come away because he was going to die. And I realized, of course, Theon was an unreliable narrator. So I just thought this was a changed my opinion chapter. She actually
Great,
feels bad for Theon.
And that she actually really does care about Theon.
Yeah, I do feel like George might have retconned her character a little bit because she didn't try to appeal to Theon like at all in Clash. I understand that she wanted to test him and this is kind of a stranger, but she just came across, I think, a little too much of a bitch, I guess. But again, it's from Theon's perspective, so unreliable, I guess.
I was just thinking about that. Like, I guess she was a little harsh, but at the same time, she has someone who's a rival for the thing that she's been here training for that, like while he was off in Winterfell. So I feel like I understand her aggression because she can't. If you have someone who's contesting you or like an actual rival, you want to shut that shit down as soon as you can. I get her humiliating him just so she could secure her birthright. But then again, like she was actually kind of kind to him. Like when he leaves the dining hall after she embarrasses him with her sweet suckling babe, and he goes to barf on the bridge. She's out there. She's like, well, I kind of had to do it. Like I had no choice. This is a ruthless land, and you're trying to take what is mine.
And I think in the final interaction at Winterfell, she's quite clearly disgusted with Theon for ostensibly killing Bran and Rickon, because it's both a stupid thing and also just a unnecessarily cruel thing in her eyes.
Yes.
But I do agree about retconning. I think Asha's grandfather, Quellon Greyjoy, was retconned into being like a reformer. I've heard other people post Tumblrs about this. Originally he wasn't. He might have been just a Reaver like Balon.
The thing is, George does say he's a grower with his story writing, so he can plant characters, but then later on decide that with what he wants to do, they need to change. This is why you should write all of your books first before publishing any of them.
I mean, I don't mind the retconning that much, but it can be frustrating if you're trying to read more into the texts for symbolism and foreshadowing and everything.
There's never been a major retcon to my knowledge, so it doesn't sort of start to bother me.
Yeah, he's way better than most fantasy writers who just like completely change plot lines and characters and introduce new things that just don't fit the story. So I'm more forgiving of certain things.
Okay. And Bina's last note on this chapter is that this is really great writing, and she forgot that Dance had passages like this, and I agree. I loved the last half of this chapter with the battle sequence, and I thought it was gorgeous writing.
I loved the opening paragraph of this chapter. I don't know why. I just really liked all that repetition. I loved the writing in this chapter beyond the smutty part.
Yeah, cut out that part, and then the rest of it's great.
I like in the battle, again, when they're dressed up in the shrubs, and Asha's it feels like the forest itself is attacking us. There's that theme of the North doesn't want these Ironborn. The Ironborn don't belong here. A nice strong theme going there. I like that.
Do we want to move on to the next chapter now? And
do we think that the Mountain Clansmen are going to be any use to Stannis? Because I think the ratio to kills was something like 8-1.
Okay, no, Mountain Clans. Later on in Dance, when we actually see Stannis' army going through the snow, it's the Mountain Clansmen that actually know how to survive and are doing okay, and it's the Southrons that are just God damn it, we're freezing our asses off, we don't know how to deal with this, we're seriously struggling, and our people are dying, whereas the Mountain Clansmen are just no, this is fine, hi.
Yeah, also they're really important, for unifying the North towards Stannis, because they care about the Stark kids. I think the Mountain Clans, didn't one of them run into Stark Bran when they were on their way or something, or maybe I made that up.
No, they did.
Yeah. And so I think they're also important for political reasons as well as military and survival reasons.
Yeah, no, I think the mountain clans are essential to Stannis' cause and case in the north.
Yeah, but I think they could have a battle. They are called a quarrelsome folk who tend to fight one another, so that could get quite damaging if it happens during a battle or something, or before a battle.
Was such a galvanizing enemy of the Boltons and their universal sort of love or respect for Ned Stark. Yeah, it could happen, and I do expect the northern factions might clash in the Winds of Winter, once the Boltons, in my opinion, are gone. But yeah, it could happen.
Commander that appears with Flick Stark or something like that.
So, something could come up.
Starks might still be like, nah, not having it, but they could always get killed.
Well, what's her face married the Then, I think. So I think she's technically the heir, so she has the most political clout, I guess.
She's definitely one of the Karstark factions, and probably the strongest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something I would like to read. Hint, George.
I'd like to read.
Can I just say one small thing?
Yes.
I don't like how this chapter ends with another scene of an army just appearing out of nowhere to save the day, to take the enemy in the rear, and it's Stannis again. It's kind of just like the battle at the wall one more time. I feel like there's always that magical army that comes out of nowhere.
Well, I can understand where this army comes from, because they're, again, northern men who can use the environment to their advantage.
Like, that's true, but I think someone said on the previous episode that Stannis he feels like a character who kind of just bounces around the map, just fucking shit up. And he's just like more like a storm or a force rather than a character. And
he's a Storm Lord. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Well, my complaint.
That is true. Is the Fury. Ours is the Fury.
Yeah, he is a Storm Lord, so he can be a tornado across the map. I retract my statement.
But having Stannis as a character in is probably very good, because otherwise a lot of our stories wouldn't intertwine and they'd get very set and insular. But having Stannis going around and enabling the different plots to be combined with his character is a very good thing. I like it.
Yeah. He has a good way of connecting the threads, but it just feels like I've seen this scene before. I know this plot line. Can we do it? Because again, this chapter is kind of just the Theon chapter all over again, and Stannis coming in saving the day is kind of just a previous Jon chapter all over again. So rereading these books, I kind of get more into the structure of it, like how Martin is crafting the story, and seeing how he's puppeteering these characters is kind of, you start seeing the repetition, and it's a little disappointing to see a storyline play again and again. But overall, I guess it's okay.
I guess the difference here might be that the perspectives are reversed. In this case, Stannis is the villain to Asha, and it's a defeat, not a victory. Well, to us, it's a victory, I guess.
Yeah, that is true. He's not saving her, as we'll find out in other chapters.
So speaking of other chapters, let's move on to Jon. Now, Hannah, are you ready to be introduced?
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Good morning. So, say your forum intro, please.
Hi, it's late to the party. Shadow baby on the forums and in real life.
So, we're doing the Jon chapter now. Jon 7, this takes place from the 29th to the 30th of April.
Okay, I hope you get it. But I think everyone will. So it says, bravely bold Jon Snow rode forth from Castle Black, taking with him new recruits to say their vows to the old gods. Owen Marsh objects and says you'll be killed in nasty ways. Brave, brave, brave Lord Commander. Ghost runs off and the men move out, and then Jon begins to think he was not in the least bit scared to exposit and reminisce about Egret and choosing positions for the new recruits. and rehoming the horrors of Molestown. Then Ghost reappears and Jon wargs involuntarily. Wildlings were near. They were not in the least bit scared to be mashed into a pulp, or to have their kneecaps split and their elbows broken. Leathers uses the old tongue to talk to Wun Wun and parlay to pray together during the night in the holy Weirwood Grove. When asked why they didn't move on to Castle Black, the wildlings relay rumors about men that yielded were killed. So the wildlings were afraid to have their bodies burned away, but bravely bold Jon Snow reassures them they can return safely with the crows if they choose. Then he leads the men into saying their vows. When it's done, they bravely run away, back to the wall. He assigns Leathers to mind Wun Wun, and it is, as he's greeted with a letter from Stannis, wherein he tells Jon he's taken Deepwood Motte with the help of Mormont, the she-bear, and he'll be moving on to Winterfell next. He hopes Nance will be successful. The end. I was going to sing it, but then I decided not to.
I thought it was a poem at first. I didn't know what was happening.
I remember expecting it to be a song.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
A long time ago.
It's like Sir Robin's minstrels, like, bravely bold Sir Robin rode forth from Camelot.
That's probably why, yeah.
Bravely ran away, oh, brave Sir Robin. I love it.
Oh, I remember now. But something interesting you pointed out, Hannah, was that there's rumors among the wildlings that the people who yield are getting killed. Now, usually with these rumors, there's a hint of truth in them. But my mind is drawing a blank.
Well, he says, like, there's rumors that they all got burned, and then Jon's like, Melisandre or fucking fires, you know, like, bad PR.
Mel did actually burn Mance. Of course, man.
Oh, and one wildling, I think, tried to charge at Melisandre or Stannis and got killed. Maybe that's where it comes from.
And as well, all the wildlings were burning Weirwood when they came through. So it could be...
That's just so petty and cruel. Yeah.
But seriously, Jon needs to start a goddamn whisper campaign, being like, the men of the Night's Watch are fine, they're great, they're gonna save the day, go join them, they'll feed you. Like, you know you wanna. Haven't you seen Glow Season 2?
Well, he does send those scouts out. But I think all the scouts are going to die, or at least 3 of them will. And I think they were ranging, but not necessarily to spread the word that they'll take refugees.
I think it was to range, not to spread word, because he needs to send out some of his wildlings that are on his side out to try to convince people to at least sort of start spreading the word that it is safe to go and, like, that they will be careful.
I feel like they're all probably so paranoid at this point, though. Like, they're not gonna listen. Do you know what I mean? They either were gonna go or they weren't, I feel like.
Well, he does send out Val in future chapters. This actually is something he'll do, and Val will come back with Tormund and his host of men. But yeah, he needed to do more of that.
Well, like, yeah, but that's what I mean is, like, look at how long it took for that to happen. And it's only because he ends up sending Val. But, like, I don't think you can blame him for being mistrusting. Like, here, come into this trap, you know? So I don't even think they needed to hear any rumors specifically. They could have just made it up.
Yeah, it seems like the natural assumption the wildlings wouldn't be in such a rush to go to the crows who killed them.
Yeah.
But what's their other option? The others?
Exactly.
Hardhome?
A lot of them did go to Hardhome.
Maybe they look at that as a more honorable way to die, though.
The thing is, they don't want to be turned into whites and die from the others. So the Night's Watch is their best option, or to try to make it to Hardhome.
But maybe, I mean, what would you rather have? Be killed by your enemy in a trap, or basically join the army of your enemy? And I don't think they're religious where they're concerned about becoming an other, having an effect on your afterlife.
I think this speaks to the divisions between the Night's Watch and the wildlings, that they are so divided that, you know, they can't make this common cause. It's so difficult for them to achieve. And yeah, they'd rather be divided and die than join together.
It's so stupid. Like, you're on the eve of the apocalypse. Like, the dead are coming and you guys can't just sit down and hash it out.
get your shit together.
That's what's dumb about Jon is, like, he tries to get it together and tell them all how ridiculous this division is anyway, and then they kill him for it. Like,
well, they kill him for a number of reasons.
It's a long list.
We can discuss that in the final chapter, I believe.
I don't know. I think one of the only valid, quote unquote, valid reasons they have is that, like, that would be the closest thing to being valid, and it's not. And it's just frustrating because it's like, how fucking dumb are you? How ignorant are you? Like,
Jon or his assassins.
The assassins, especially Bo and Marsh, who I absolutely despise.
yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Well, we do get Wun Wun in this chapter.
Oh yeah, Wun Wun. I forgot about that. Yeah.
How did you forget that Wun Wun in this chapter? Like,
I knew he was in the chapter, but I said to myself, bring Wun Wun up, but then I forgot about that.
No, okay. In my notes,
Okay,
about Jon and his Whisper campaign that he should be launching right now, that every single soul on the other side of the wall is another body for the enemy to take control over and to use against you in the battle ahead. And the thing is, you especially don't want any of the goddamn giants becoming whites. They're hard enough to kill when they are themselves, let alone when they are undead beings.
Yeah, it seems like Wun Wun might very well be the last of the giants at this point. Kind of sad.
Imagine how many giants' corpses the others can get.
They should have hundreds, because that's how many Jon saw when he was with the wildlings. So that's a lot of trouble.
Giants and mammoths and Shadowcats. I can't. I really want to read Winds.
So this is where we encounter the corpses that are going to go into the ice cells, which is sort of a Chekhov's gun that doesn't go off.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be a warning that, hey, the others are near, as soon as you get ice zombies.
I think some people have interpreted the fact that in future chapters they don't come back to life means that the wall has some sort of magic. Well, we know the wall has spells woven into it, but if a corpse is directly below the wall, it can't be animated. Whereas if you take it past the wall, then it can come back to life.
Interesting. I would have taken it as that the others are too far away to reanimate those particular corpses, so once they reach a certain point, they might animate then.
Oh yeah, proximity based.
Yeah. Just depends on how their magic works, really, wouldn't it?
Which we know, like, nothing about, basically.
Not much speculation can happen, or should I say a lot of speculation can happen.
Well, with the first two whites they found, it was daytime when they first found them, right? I believe. Yeah, okay, let's say it was daytime.
They took them back when they were faking dead.
Okay, yeah. So like in Dance, we find out from kind of. Okay. Like I think Tormund said, they don't come out in the daytime. So even if we just set aside like magical proximity alerts, they wouldn't awake in the daytime anyway. They were always waiting for the night. So
yeah, I just realized that's why they call it the long night.
So long.
And then the others can come out. Like I understood that like the night lasted for so long, but I get it now. It's like the others can be alive, be animated for a long period of time rather than just be confined to a specific time.
Yeah, we do see daylight limiting their movements. I think Sam in A Storm of Swords and Gren get saved when the sun rises, and then the others pursuing them have to back off, it would seem.
Wait. Do you know how there's barrier mounds all across, like, the entire planet, like, Casterly Lock, like, the graves of the giants and all that are sort of cave systems? Could that be for, like, the others, like, in history? Like, hiding out there during night times.
That's terrifying, man.
There's something in a sample chapter that we're going to talk about in the Aftershow.
We can make a note, please.
Yeah, leave it to the Aftershow. I think that's our policy.
Yeah. Okay.
So something else we see in this chapter is Jon sending away those who are the most loyal to him. So Donal Noy is being sent away to be the steward of one of the castles. A couple of other people he can trust get sent away. And again, he's going to leave himself defenseless by the end of A Dance with Dragons.
He's begging to die. He really, really wants to be assassinated. I don't understand anything he's doing.
The thing is, it's not just that he's sending away people he trusts, because you do need people that you can rely on in positions of power. It's he's also not forming any new bonds. That's the big thing. That's what he should be doing, but he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why George is doing this, because Jon needs to fall really far, because he can't just be amazingly good at leading people when he's not had any experience, and he needs to learn. But I feel like some of these things are common sense.
The thing is, he's taking the wrong lessons from Ned, because in one of the previous Jon chapters, they have it where Jon was offered to sit and eat with some of the people. I think it was Saturn, Pip, and someone else. But Jon said no and went off and didn't join them eating. And he thought to himself not to be too close. Like Ned said, don't be too close to your vassals. Whereas Rob takes the opposite side and remembered that Ned always ate with a different person from Winterfell every single night, or visiting dignitaries, he ate with someone different every night to form strong bonds with them. So they took completely different lessons from it.
I also think he's been interpreting the kill the boy speech by Maester Aemon, and maybe he's been taking that a little too hard.
A little bit too literally.
Yeah, basically.
Well, yes, grow up, but also realize that these are the people you are fighting with. They need to be able to trust you as well as you being able to trust them, and they won't trust you if they know nothing about you.
I just think the Night's Watch should have an age limit, or cutoff, like the presidents. I mean, you're not American, but in the U.S. presidency, you need to be 35, because if you're under 35, you're probably a dumbass still.
No life experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is Jon like, he's like 17 now, I guess, or is he still 16?
He's 17-ish, 16, 17-ish.
But I agree, like a Lord Commander should have, he was trained in the castle and he has that highborn knowledge, but he's still too young, and it's like fantasy book silly to have him be in this position of power.
He also was only on the Night's Watch for 6 months or something.
Yeah, that's the part. It's not like he's 20 and he's been a member of the Night's Watch for 6 years, sort of thing. It's only 6 months. That's not really enough time to learn the ropes, make connections, build lasting friendships with people in power. You've just met everyone.
When you look at the previous chapters, you can see George sort of putting his thumb on the scales and killing off all of these leadership people, like people who succeed Lord Warmont. And this one dies, oh, the Vice Lord Commander dies. And then, obviously, there's no one left but Jon. This is definitely a recurring theme of people being put into these leadership positions too young throughout the series.
But it's also interesting seeing how each character deals with their power positions differently, and how no one's reining Joffrey in when he comes into power, and he does whatever he wants, at least until Tywin gets there, and Tywin sort of reins him in a bit.
Well, that's unusual though, because Joffrey still is not of age, and he should have had a regent, but Joffrey's just a tyrant who kind of decided not to do that because he's crazy.
Well, officially Cersei is the regent, but Cersei is just very lax about disciplining and reining in Joffrey, I think, is the main problem.
Yeah.
So, do you have any points about the Jon chapter?
Yes. I was struck a little, he has a throwaway line in there about how he couldn't tell if he was sensing something like himself or if it was Ghost, and Ghost runs up to him. And the blasé nature of how he's involuntarily warging, kind of, and it's becoming so normal to him that even for him it's a throwaway line, it was so normal now, and I just never noticed.
How George wrote the Ghost scene with how Jon is actually questioning whether or not it's his senses that's getting stronger and better with him being able to smell one of the Men of the Night's Watch, or whether it's Ghost's sense of smell that he is inputting.
Yeah, it just seems like it's obviously becoming so normal for him that he's not really like, whoa, what the fuck just happened? You know?
I never get his reluctance to lean into it. Like, him and Robb just wanted to not call themselves wargs, and I don't understand why they don't embrace it.
Is it because in the North it's something looked down on? It's not a good thing?
There seems to be a stigma of wargs and skin changers. I feel like it's more of a superstitious thing that people haven't experienced. Sort of like they know the others are out there and kind of compare it to Snarks and Grumpkins. But I feel like if I actually was a warg and I could use this ability, like Robb's army, they totally support him in Grey Wind. So why deny what you are? Like, it's your strength. And for Jon to be where he is, like, the supernatural is there, it's real. So it's not something you should be ashamed of.
I don't think in Robb's case that he actually knew he was a warg. Like, I think he knew something was up. I don't know if he had, like, a concept of what was going on. But for Jon, like, I don't know if he's denying his warginess. It's just more, I don't know. Never mind.
He doesn't mention
It's getting stronger.
He doesn't explore it or try to learn more about it. His is more of, it's here, it's happening, but speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. It doesn't exist in me, even though it does.
Maybe for them, just because, like, the way they were raised, like, they were raised by Ned, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's something that they don't, maybe not even consciously, but just subconsciously associate with, like, showmanship, or, like, they don't wield it like another person would, because it's not fair, you know? It's like an unforgiving image.
Well, also they were educated by Lewin, who was definitely against that kind of stuff. So there could be, like, a subconscious, but just an internalized idea of pushing it away.
Yeah, I can see that.
And even their own mother is from the South as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kevin, you're right. You know someone else would. Someone else would be like, I'm fucking magic. Now what?
Like, I'm awesome. I can do all this shit with this wolf.
God, can you imagine, like, a Bolton or, like, even, like, Cersei having some shit like that?
So, getting back to Jon, I feel like one of the differences in warging potential is that Jon lacks a mentor, whereas Bran has had a mentor in Jojen Reed and his limited contact with Bloodraven. So I feel like the lack of a mentor figure is probably his biggest impediment to expanding his skin changing and his bond with Ghost.
Yes, he needs his Obi-Wan character.
Mind you, Jon at least knows that it exists now, and that it is something that happens among the wildlings, knowing of Varamir as well.
Yeah, he knows of wargs, but again, he's not been taught. This is a very transitory chapter for Jon. Like, nothing of, apart from getting the zombies in the ice cells and Wun Wun, nothing of great importance happens. It's just filling the reader in on what's happening. Yeah,
there's a little closeting about, like, his relationship with Bone Marsh that will lead to this killing later and stuff. Like, you get a little bit more of that conflict, and the guys that were, like, caught with the chicks from Molestown, they're like, well, we just thought it was a whorehouse. And he's like,
And that it's being named harlots instead of Hardwin.
So.
And he's still sniffing satin, smelling the sweet stuff in his beard.
Oh boy.
That was an interesting, little tidbit.
I know.
It's kind of weird. Like, he's really like aware of satin as a attractive, sweet-smelling young man. And
I got this with Jon and Satin that it's more like he's never really known anyone like him, so it's more like a fascinating type thing.
I think though Satin's attention to Satin is more just to set up how, like, Satin is so different from someone that Jon could have selected as his steward.
Yes.
It's a future source of conflict between bloody Bowen Marsh and Septon Celador.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's just like adding like characterization onto like the fact that like Satin is just so not what people expect or want, I guess.
That's a really good point, Abby, because it's also a demonstration of how Jon takes the mantle of commander very seriously, and he, ever since that one time when he was tempted to go, like, when he heard about Ned being in King's Landing, and Maester Aemon counsels him on, like, he's not your father, and you need to not do stupid shit. So like ever since he passed that trial, he takes it really seriously. Like, it doesn't matter what Satin was before, it matters what he is here now as my brother.
And it ties into the whole theme of like ability counts for more than birth. So like, even though Satin is just a Molestown prostitute, he's actually a good crossbowman. He's brave and he stands up, so.
And he's honest.
Yes.
It mirrors Jon's thoughts in this chapter about the Brothers of the Night Watch. He thinks about them saying, I probably wouldn't like what they were before they came here, but now they are here, I really trust them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I thought that line showed just how ignorant Jon is, though, because he's like, I don't care about what their past is, which is like, that's the ideal of the Night's Watch, but the reality is that you have these people like, who's the guy that sings and then he like runs away once they like Daemon or Darian or something. You have these people that, like, yes, you shouldn't care about the past, like the Watch erases that, but I just think it shows how ignorant Jon is towards the people that he surrounds himself with. Like, he's such an idealist, even though
he was raised by one. I mean, it's the same thing with Ned. I mean, Ned wants to believe the best in everyone and wants to think the honor actually counts for something more than just like bullshit words that you teach people. That people are bound by it. Yeah. It's kind of naive, but it's also like, it's just a part of like your integrity. You know what I mean? Like, and I am the type of person where I don't believe like you should hold on to a grudge or be angry. Like, you should either just let it go or forgive. And I hold to that like really true. And it's not the way other people behave, but I don't do it because that's how other people do it. I do it because it's what's right. So even if I get hurt, at least I know I did the right thing. And that ideal is held very highly in the Stark house. Well, by some people.
I'm Stannis Baratheon with a grudge.
Same.
I will gnaw that bone till the day I die.
Like, man, I hold a grudge, and like, I hold a grudge.
You know what I mean? Like, that's, you do you, but I think that's just, like, with Jon and Ned and stuff, they don't care and Brienne is the same way too. It's like, if it gets me killed, fine, that's the price I'll have to pay, but I'm not gonna debase myself to win. I'm gonna stick to my core values. And it is one big setup, though, for the end, obviously.
Yeah.
Speaking about Jon, and leading on from your big giving people, when Jon actually reads the letter from Stannis, he feels satisfaction at hearing that Stannis has chosen to hang the common-born Iron Men, so he's not willing to forgive his grudge against them because he left Winterfell. And the thing is, like, bruh, he literally thought in this chapter that he needs to find more men to man the wall. And the people Stannis is going to be hanging are more people he could be using on his wall to try to defend them from the others, right?
Yeah, I think it's evidence that he can't quite commit to the Night's Watch ethos. He still retains his past identity as a Snow of Winterfell. And as we'll see in the end of this book, he sort of makes a break with the Night's Watch.
And even in this chapter, when praying to the old gods, when the people are saying their vows, he's contemplating and asking them to, like, show him what to do and show him the way, sort of.
Yeah.
And
James and I were talking about him yesterday, and we were like, I think that he'll live again, and he'll look at it as that his vow is fulfilled.
Yeah, it's a convenient loophole that no one really thought of.
Yeah.
I was thinking that is he would live, but not him.
I think he will. I think he'll come back as some semblance of Jon, but I think he'll look at it as his vow is now fulfilled, and he doesn't need to be a part of the Night's Watch anymore.
I wonder if this vow was inspired by the last long night, where, like, if the Night's Watchmen died, they would be resurrected as a white, and they're clearly not part of the Night's Watch anymore. So it's like, you know, gotta burn them, gotta burn that body.
I just think, like, the whole resurrection thing could be a sort of sleight of hand, because I think, like, the whole, like, I just happened to lose all my memories, which could probably identify myself sort of thing. And I think they're being controlled by someone outside or so forth. They're more like puppets.
That's what I think.
Oh, I don't think that at all. I mean, I feel like Lady Stoneheart knows what she's about.
I think the people brought
she's
back
like,
by R'hllor.
yeah, she's a fire white.
Yeah, but you have a
whatever.
whole opinion on
The white.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just look at them as, like, literally walking corpses, right? Like, there's no... It's not like Warm Bodies, where they remember shit.
So, Bina's last point on this chapter was that it's interesting to compare and contrast Kat freeing Jamie to Jon freeing Mance, and in both cases it was to rescue the Stark girls. So in this chapter, they mentioned that Mance was led into the north along with 6 pretty spearwives to free Arya.
To free no one.
Arya. And in both of these cases, those involved completed their mission to the best of their ability. So when Jamie got back to King's Landing, Sansa had already left King's Landing, and Joffrey had already been murdered, and Sansa was a murder suspect, but he still sent Brienne out to find a maid of 3 and 10 with auburn hair.
Can you say it 10 more times?
No thanks. I'm looking for my sister. And with Arya, so with Arya actually being Jane Poole, not Jon's sister, so even though they do succeed in their mission to rescue her and she is eventually saved, it doesn't fulfill what Jon wants, same as it doesn't with Jamie, it doesn't fulfill what Catelyn/Lady Stoneheart wanted, even though in both cases they did try their best.
That's an interesting parallel. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that either.
The biggest difference would be that when Jon does it, it's obviously a secret thing that no one was meant to find out about. Whereas Jamie's escape was publicly, and that obviously damaged the, the morale of both sides, or of the Stark faction.
Yeah, and it completely segregated the Stark faction, and it made the Karstarks go against Robb. Well, the last straw, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, like, Jon also there's mitigating motivations, though, for sending Mance. I mean, having a Bolton in Winterfell is not going to be good for anybody, especially if he's trying to settle people in the new gift and stuff.
But the thing is, Jon is not supposed to ally with anyone because he's meant to be the commander of the Night's Watch.
True, but he does, at this point, I mean, you gotta go for broke, and you need someone who's going to be cooperative with you, not a fucking threat at your back and your front. You know what I mean? Like, that is for the Watch.
So far, the only person who is cooperating is Stannis.
Right, like, you know, the people occupying the crown lands don't give a fuck. No one else seems to give a fuck. And he literally has enemies to his north and south. I mean, it's not like he randomly got up one day and was like, you know what I think? Let's just start meddling in the affairs of the South. I mean, these are like threats that were directly made to him. You know, it is a person that can threaten the stability of the Watch that he's trying to bulk up on because of the shit show coming at them from the north.
It is a difficult situation. Like, I'm sure he's looking at the Boltons and being like, are they ever going to really be my allies? Yeah. Are they going to send me men? You know, what's our long-term relationship going to be like? Yeah, it's complicated.
I mean, obviously his primary motivations are, yes, familial ties. Like, even in this chapter, he's like, I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I do. But at the same time, it's like, the Night's Watch vows to protect the realms of men. So, as a Night's Watch person, would it not stand to reason that if anyone in those realms of men is threatened and no one else is going to do anything about it, would it not be within your purview to step in and intercede on their behalf?
Well, as we'll see, there's many ways to interpret these oaths.
Yeah, like that's a really loose interpretation, because then you kind of push yourself into the position of like king, like you want to take control and police what people do across the kingdom.
Who else can look after the people better than us, who are here to look after the realms of men? So this will be my realm of men. And
as we'll see in this chapter, Jon does realize that the realms of men must include the wildlings as well. So that's an important aspect of this chapter. It's the impetus for him sending out Val, trying to rescue the people at Hardhome, and some of his other efforts to reach out to the wildlings.
To reach out to other humans.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel like he's breaking rules and breaking precedents, but it isn't without good cause, obviously, and we are privy to that information. But it's also like the rules are being broken around him anyway. Like, he always knew he was going to go up to the Night's Watch, and he was going to be First Ranger, he was going to hang out with Benjen. Literally every single part of that went tits up. And, oh, by the way, there's like these legendary ice demons. They're real and they're coming at you. So deal with that, but don't do anything.
It's like literally the end of the world. So I don't blame him for like stretching I don't blame him for like breaking the rules. Like, you can't play fair, especially when one is the end of the world and two, your enemies are the Lannisters and the Boltons. Like, they're not going to treat you with honor and nobility. So you might as well play by their rules.
Yeah, because to me it's like, the realms of, okay, he's supposed to take no part, but what are you supposed to do when they like basically forced you to? They're taunting you, they're engaging with you, you know? You're getting letters and people showing up at your house, and you're supposed to just like roll over and take it? I mean, come on.
Under better circumstances, you would turn to a king to mediate the situation, but you don't have that. You can't go to Cersei Lannister and say, hey, the Boltons are fucking with me, I need your help. She's gonna be like, oh, okay, cool, I'll send you an army. And the army's just gonna slaughter all of. Yeah, exactly.
Right? What is he supposed to do? Write a raven to Cersei and be like, so this other king showed up, and I don't know what you want me to do, because they've been ignoring like him and Lord Commander Mormont the entire fucking time.
He did send a letter saying like, Stannis is here and I'm doing this for him, but I'm not taking part in the War of Five Kings. And she was like, no, you're Ned Stark's son. I don't believe a thing. You're a bastard. I don't believe you.
Right.
But I will take back the statement I said. Like, I don't think he should play on their rules, but I do think he should show some type of cunning to counter what they're doing, because the game has changed. And yeah.
I mean, like I said, obviously the primary motivation is Arya. That's his home. Like, when he thinks about the way Stannis describes it in his letter, he's like, he gets sick over it. But I think there's an argument to be made that he's still doing what he can to protect what he's been assigned to protect. Like, I think you can make an argument for that. Oh, Johnny. Oh, Johnny.
Is that all for Jon? And we can continue?
Please, God, yes.
Yes, please.
Who slipped into the seventh hell? Jon.
One of the seven hells is Jon.
Okay, so
just Jon and running around the Riverlands. That's it.
Next up, we have Victarion 2. So this chapter is also known as The Reaver. This is from A Feast for Crows, and it takes place on the last day of the Jon chapter. So that's April 30th, 300. Take it away, Michael.
Alright, so Victarion and the Iron Fleet attack the longships assembled from the Shield Islands. The battle is a success, with Victarion losing 6 ships and capturing 38. Under Euron's command, the Ironborn had sailed out of sight from the land to avoid detection and sent a diversion force up the Mander to lure the main strength of the shields away, leaving the islands themselves open to attack. It was whispered that sorcery had played a role in Euron's victory, as he'd keep several warlocks as slaves on his ship. As a reward for his previous service, Victarion was given the Dusky Woman, a beautiful mute lady whose tongue was removed. They arrive at Oakenshield to behold a sacked and burning town, with women and children being led onto ships to be sold into slavery by Euron's command. At Oakenshield Castle, Victarion comes across the Reader, who laments that they have earned the enmity of House Tyrell, and that ravens were deliberately allowed to be sent off to Highgarden. Inside, Lord Hewitt's wife and daughters are serving the Ironborn captives, while Lord Hewitt is bound to his chair, forced to watch. Eventually, they are forced to disrobe and serve naked at the command of Thalia Flowers, who sits on Euron's lap. Euron stands and proclaims that the Shield Islands will be given to Harris Harlaw, Andric the Unsmiling, Marin Volmark, and Newt the Barber. Too late, Victarion realizes that Euron has deprived his potential enemies of their lieutenants, himself included. Euron announces that they will sail for Slavers Bay tomorrow, but his captains are unwilling, wishing instead to attack Highgarden, Old Town, and the Arbor, which are close by and undefended. Euron later summons Victarion to his chambers. He gives him shade of the evening and talks about flying from towers, the dragon egg he used to own, and that his bastard son has died from blowing dragonbinder. His lungs turn to ash. He then gets to the point: 1,000 ships cannot reach Slavers Bay, but the Iron Fleet under the command of Victarion might. He will sail to Marine and ask for Euron to marry, as well as her dragons. Victarion agrees to go, but thinks to himself that Euron stole his wife, so Victarion will steal his. Alright, that's Victarion, the Reaver.
And we have another disturbing sex scene. No, a rape scene.
Yes.
Isn't this just great?
This is something I wanted to get to. This is probably one of the most unpleasant chapters to read, for many reasons. Like, you have the naval combat, which always makes me a bit icky, but like by the end of it, the floorboards are just full of blood and guts. You then go to like this burning town and all these kids and mothers and wives, they're being led into slavery. And then you have this really horrific rape scene of one of Lord Hewitt's daughters. And yeah, I would say this is a really interesting counterpoint to Asha's Ironborn chapter, where she sort of has like an enlightened view and she's vaguely an outsider. Victarion is just, I don't know, mainstream Ironborn, and it's, yeah, very unpleasant.
I just have one point about the rape scene. It's like, no spoilers for the show, but I know a lot of people that watch the show and that read the books and watch the show are very, very critical, and they complain a lot about how the show handles sexual violence. They kind of ignore what Martin is doing in the books. Like, they say, we didn't need this scene to happen. We already know Ramsay is evil. We didn't need this scene to happen because we already know this character is evil. But Martin does the same thing, and I don't think there's a lot of effort put into criticizing him for his gratuitous sexual violence, because there's always, hidden Targaryens to find.
Yeah, I mean, his sexual violence that he puts in is so kind of throwaway. Like, it's not, like, I don't think that sexual violence should ever be an addition to a plot, like, to advance the plot. Like, I don't know how to explain this, but how to phrase that. But
he uses it to decorate his scenery.
Yeah, like
in this one, it is. He could have made a very similar point without going out and out doing it. He could have been like, this chick was led away by that guy, and like left it at that, so it's obvious in subtext, rather than going out and explaining everything.
Like I always think of that. Yeah, I always think of that Theon chapter in the Clash of Kings when he rapes Kira. No, with Kira, when he's just like when he's captured Winterfell and he's like kind of falling into paranoia, and I just like, it's so unnecessary. Like, you already understand that Theon's kind of a shit, and like he's done a lot of pretty shitty things. You don't, like, Martin didn't need to write this part in as well. Like, it's just, we get the point.
Because isn't it like he aggressively takes her, and like by the time he's done with her, she's crying. And that's one thing that like sticks with me. Like, I don't read The Clash of Kings really. I don't like Theon's chapters, but that one just pops in my head. But like what you said earlier, it feels like someone said it feels like his sex scenes are like decorative. Like, I feel like it's a compulsion when he writes these scenes. Like, if I'm having a scene where characters are slaughtering the village, well, I have to have someone have a rape scene. I have to mention someone was raped, and I just don't feel like you have to.
I think his thing is, like, in the real world, yes, it would happen, which, yes, you could, but you could just mention it, or be like, women afterwards were raped, or like, people are crying after this, rather than showing it in graphic detail.
Or like, you could do it once, and then be done. Like, and then, the rest is either mentions or we get it. Like, it's happened once it doesn't matter whose chapter, but we understand that this is something that happens.
Like you said, we get it. We totally understand. It's a horrible, horrible world. After that scene where Arya hears the Mountains men talking about doing what they did to that girl at the tavern, I never need to hear about rape again. I get it. It's here in the story. Just kind of chill out, Martin. But yeah, that's my thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would almost say it distracts from what George wants us to look at, because there's a lot of discussion material and very important things that get established here. But yeah, it's just a distraction from the point he's trying to make.
Yeah, right. I think having it is world building for him, but the thing is, this chapter doesn't need it. This chapter has a lot of substance already. It's 20 pages long. He didn't need to put it in. Do we want to talk about what's actually something else in this chapter?
So yeah, I've got a couple of points I can rattle off. A lot of people think that Euron was a failed apprentice to Bloodraven. And he's mentioning his dream to Victarion about how he dreamt he could fly as a kid. Who else believes this or thinks it might be true?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of
Jacobs. No.
No.
No, I think there's a lot of weight to this theory.
But the fact that what is it? Yeah, Euron's banner is a crow with an eye, one red eye, and he says, yeah, we don't know if we can fly unless we leap from some tall tower. And a lot of weird shit.
But the thing is as well, how would he have ever met Bloodraven?
I think it has to do with his smiling eye. It was there's a thought that, I don't know the exact theory, but it's something to do with he had this something happened to him, and that was what made Bloodraven think that he could harness, Euron had the capability to harness IZ. But I don't know someone else probably can explain this theory a lot better than I can.
I don't think a physical contact was necessary between them. It could have just been a mental connection, like what Bran initially gets with Bloodraven.
But Bran gets it because, or a lot of people believe this, I think, because of his fall. So it's he can no longer physically fly, physically do whatever. And so he is able to tap into this, this mental, this, astro projectile flight, sort of.
I think a near-death experience is necessary.
And now he's an X-Men and he's finally super powered up.
Yes, because Jojen mentions he had a fever and he almost died, and that's when Bloodraven came to him.
So do you think Bloodraven taps in when they're weakened then? So it's rather than them becoming stronger, it's Bloodraven's finally able to break in?
I think the lands of always winter, the Great Other, that realm that they're in, the powers that they use is something close to death, and you have to really reach the edge of it to tap into your powers. Because Daenerys goes through something kind of similar when she gives birth, and I think she almost dies. She's on the verge of death when she finally wakes the dragon, and she wakes up and she feels cleansed by fire.
It's the Gaelic Festival of Samhain, the way the description of it is the veil between the two worlds is at its thinnest.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of something like that, where I like that imagery because it makes some kind of sense, Don't get me wrong, I love me some tinfoil, but I honestly think he's just using a metaphor, though. I shudder to think that Euron has any sort of special powers other than
so stupid.
Well, people think he's a warg also, that he controls the Dusky Woman or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up next.
I have a theory about the Dusky Woman, but first, Zander in the chat for this, because he's lurking, said that maybe the reason that Bloodraven was, quote, waiting for Bran was because he contacted Euron and after a little bit realized that it was a bad idea, hence Bloodraven's hurriedness of Bran's training and trying to get it done as quickly as possible.
I don't know, but Bloodraven said that he was with Bran from his first dream, from his first walk. So I think he's always been invested in Bran.
But How old?
Before Bran was born or something.
Wait, how old Euron though? Because Bran's only 10 and Euron has been around a lot longer, and Bloodraven's been around for all of Euron's lifespan.
But what Xander's also saying though in the chat, he's saying time's not linear for the three-eyed crow. So if he can see forward and backward, then he sees Bran's importance forward and goes backward to get him.
Possibly. It could be that his powers were not like as defined or strong or whatever.
Yeah, it could even be that Bran unwittingly reached out to him somehow. He says that he sees him from his first dream, but did he say he went and looked at him? It could be that he came to Bloodraven, not the other way around.
To be honest, I can't articulate why, like using book text, why I don't support the theory. I just feel like thematically, it just doesn't fit for Euron to be an apprentice to Bloodraven.
Oh, really?
I don't believe
it just feels wrong. It just feels off.
Like, not a failed apprentice, like he tried training him, but it didn't go well, and now Euron has this almost metaphysical outlook that he displays in this book, in this chapter, and several others.
It's just one of those theories that feels a little overwrought. Like, it doesn't quite work out with what Martin is doing. But, I don't want to say that because I'm not speaking for him. It just, for me, it doesn't seem to work with what I've been reading. But I have no evidence to support my counter theory.
I think Euron has enough weird stuff going on without necessarily saying he's Bloodraven's apprentice. Like, if anything in this chapter, because there's the secret Targaryen thing, right? If anything, I'd be more like, is Euron a secret Targaryen? Which seems kind of very impossible. But he has the dreams of flying and wants to fly, and I'm like, why are you putting this in here, George? Like, there's enough stuff.
It's too much stuff.
That's what I mean. I think he's just saying, like, as a metaphor, sure, we might die, but we could also live and rise,
But as well, Victarion thinks that Balon was mad, Aeron is madder, and Euron is maddest of them all. So let's all put it down to Euron being utterly nuts or really magical. But I'm leaning towards completely and utterly psychotic.
In this chapter, Euron mentions that he used to own a dragon egg, but that he threw it into the sea in one of his black moons.
Are we gonna get
in one of my dark dudes?
Please no sea dragons.
I was gonna. Another theory is that he actually used this egg to finance Balon's assassination.
That's what I like to believe.
Yeah, and so when he says he threw it into the sea, well, it was used for Balon, and Balon got thrown into the sea, so he's having a bit of a joke here.
Oh, I never made that connection.
I like that. That's really
I also thought that that's part of what he was saying to Victarion when he said, well, we don't know if we can fly until we jump off some high place. And I was like, oh, you mean like Balon?
He didn't fly.
You know what I mean? Like, I kind of got the sense he was alluding to that as well.
Yeah, because obviously we know the Faceless Men charge huge amounts of money or personal value, something that's valuable to you. This is something that's interesting about Euron, is he shares his plunder so freely. He doesn't seem to take an active interest in a lot of this, which I think is, I don't know, something weird and strange about Euron.
I think it's because he's always looking at the next step. I don't need his dragon egg because I'm going to get a dragon later. Or, well, I can spare this dragon egg because it's going to give me the Sea Stone chair, which is going to lead to me getting Daenerys, which is going to lead to me becoming a god or whatever. Like, he's always, it just doesn't matter because he's looking for the next step.
Yeah, it's a means to an end, and he wants something much grander.
He's crazy pants.
I think he's a very smart villain.
I like him as a villain. He's very, almost crazy. Well, that's what it says. He's the maddest of them all, but like seductive and unpredictable and just weird.
I love how he is such a great villain in that he definitely woos the people around him and is convincing them to come over to his side, to trust him, to do what he wants, and he's making sure that they want to go to war for him and do what he wants. And he's very, very good at making sure that the people who would be against him are now doing things for him, or he takes away people that are allied with those against him and puts them in positions of power so that they will support him and do what he wants in the future. He is very, very smart in doing that. He's playing the game, and he's going to win. Not really, but, like, he's winning at the moment.
He's going to go far. It's really disturbing for me. I know these aren't real characters, of course, but to have so many people who are surrounded by characters who they are uplifting and they're giving speeches and they're trying to rally their support, but deep down, Euron is like, I'm going to give you all this shit. Well, outwardly, he's like, I'm going to give you this land for your support. I'm going to give you this gold. But inside, he's like, I don't care if any of you people die. All I want is more power in the future. And Cersei's like that, and Varys is like that. It's just really, I don't know, it's kind of creepy getting into these people's heads.
I thought for a second he said embarrassed is like that, and I was like, explain.
Wait, what?
Then I
what
you said. Well, when you were like, Cersei is like that and Varys is like that, but I thought you said embarrassed is like that. And I was like, wait, what? He is?
He's going to shake your dragon.
I was like, I missed something big here.
But I think it's very clear what Euron wants, and, like, he knows what he wants, and he's out to get what he wants, not these small victories along the way. He has a big goal, and he's working towards that, rather than taking plunder from everything and stockpiling. It's more like, this is my goal, and I'm doing things for this goal, not
He's
for
thinking bigger.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a couple of lines in this chapter where it's sort of, it implies that Euron doesn't think much of the Ironborn. What does he say? When they're talking about, let's go to the arbor and get some grapes because they can make wine. And he says, only a craven would steal a fruit when he could take the whole orchard. And when he's talking to Victarion in the end, he says, I forgot what a noisy people the Ironborn are. So I feel like he's, got this vague contempt for them. And he ultimately is just using them as a means to an end.
Yes.
I think so. And the thing is, he's only been away for 3 years. He shouldn't be, like, banned from the Iron Islands for 3 years. He shouldn't really be thinking about his own people as being so bad or so different when it hasn't actually been that long a space of time. It's not like it's been 10 years or 20 years.
It's mentioned before that he went sailing really far. Like, he's spent half of his life off the Iron Islands.
Maybe there's a reason why, because he doesn't like them.
Well, he views them as limited in my mind. So there's a couple of examples of him going against traditional Ironborn ideas, and one of them we see in this chapter is he's getting slaves. And Victarion goes on about, in his mind, Ironborn have thralls, but you don't sell thralls. And Euron's just like, fuck it, we're gonna have slaves, because I need slaves to sell.
Yep.
He just doesn't care. Like, no rules matter to him, and he just does not care. He'll do anything.
Yeah, he's the literal worst. And what's weird about, he has like an almost like Hitler level charisma too, though. Like even Victarion in the beginning of this chapter, he's like, yeah, we did all the work and Euron's gonna get all the fucking credit.
And he does.
Because he's just like got all these sycophants because he's just got a glib tongue,
And the Ironborn are just stupid.
The Ironborn are desperate at this point, and I think he's telling them what they all want to hear. We'll take all of Westeros,
Yes,
it's great.
Because
they're questioning it, apart from Roderick the Reader, who, after this chapter, definitely has a number on his back.
They're the dumbest. Their liege lords' house words are like, we're proud to be lazy fucks.
We don't contribute to agriculture.
We are not going to fend for ourselves.
And the thing is, they never try to take land that is hospitable to try to farm. They're just like, nah.
No, they're
They did. It worked out really badly. Like, they took all the riverlands.
And then
so before we were mentioning the finger dance game where they throw the axes back and forth, and if you lose the finger. And I thought that was a really good analogy for the Ironborn culture. It's stupid and it's going to kill you, but they do it because whatever.
You need your hand to steer a ship. What are you doing?
Yeah, but you can.
How are they not all
that's
dead?
Fine. No, the thing I find stupid is Victarion in this chapter grabbing
Yes, the sword.
Starry Kid's sword. And then later, I'm just like, bruh, later on it gets infected. You're a stupid motherfucker.
Oh, so do you think he got infected or was it poison?
He's so dumb.
No, the thing is, okay, so this is my theory about the Dusky Woman. So Euron gave Victarion
I really
the
hate her
Dusky
name.
Woman as a reward for his service, and supposedly she was taken off a slaver bound for lice, and so Euron says that if Victarion doesn't take her, she will be killed, and that her tongue had been torn out, but elsewise she was undamaged and beautiful, besides with skin as brown as oiled teak. So, with this, seriously, Victarion, you're a fucking stupid idiot, because he keeps speaking about all of his plans and how much he hates Euron in front of her. No one said she couldn't write, and
he says,
personally believe that she's a spy put in by Euron, and quite possibly they mention one of Euron's bastards in this chapter, who... Euron's 10-year-old bastard, skin like mud with woolly hair, who could potentially be her son from Euron as well.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Sarah, that I think there's something going on with the Dusky Woman.
Yeah.
I always read her as like a Miri Mazdur, like she'll play both sides and fuck them all up.
And she's the person who treats Victarion's wound with boiled vinegar, or supposedly boiled vinegar.
And he's always saying, like, Euron's gifts are poison. Why would you take someone into your bed if that's the case?
Because he's an idiot.
Because he's an idiot. He is so fucking dumb. He's like, I'm just a moron and you can't outsmart me.
The thing is, like, he could take her to save her life, but still don't trust her and have her, like, off cleaning your goddamn clothes and, like, leave her on the island. Like,
he's just telling her everything.
Not as someone you say everything to. So stupid.
No, he's
so proud of himself. He's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to turn on my brother. And she's like, I'm writing this down.
I don't know. Stupid idiot.
Yeah, he's like, ow, my hand hurts.
I know. Like, the thing is, it hurts more after she's treated it. And, like, by the end of the night, he's just like, man, my hand fucking hurts. And I'm just like, well, you shouldn't have grabbed a fucking sword, you idiot. Fuck's sake.
Maybe go to a maester and get it checked out. But, no, of course, the Ironborn hate maesters, so Victarion's not going to do that.
No, the thing is, he thinks that, oh yeah, I might go to the maester if they're still alive. But I don't think he ever looks for the maester in this chapter. And I'm just like, you're such an idiot.
Yeah, he's just an asshole.
Okay, but seriously, I think Roderick the Reader is like the closest to a maester the Ironborn has, and gives really good advice and thinks things through. I think he's sort of like Sam
I love him.
on the wall.
I love the way he treats Euron, like, sort of like, I went to Valeria and, like, did all these things. He's just like, did you? Like, that's it.
He's like, doubt.
And then Euron gets kissed.
Yeah, like, Roderick, you stupid, you should not have said that. Yes, and, like, thing is, he's full on questioning him, and I'm just like, man, you're gonna die now, you're numbered, like, your days are numbered, like...
Yeah, he's the only one that seems to get away with it, and he seems to be the smartest. I don't know if he, like, Euron thinking the match for him.
Because after Roderick speaks up, that's when the Ironborn kind of turn on Euron, and that's when he leaves the hall, right?
Yep.
So it was a good play for the moment.
But the thing is, next week, guess whose ship's going to go down and sink? Roderick's.
Yeah, I'm worried for him.
Like, it might not look
we need
like
to
Euron did
question
it, but Euron will do it.
Yeah.
We need to question where Euron learned everything he knows, because, like, the only person who seems to lead on the Iron Islands is Roderick, and they're related.
No,
and Euron's brothers don't know half as much.
Tristan Botley knows the story as well from the Asha chapter, which Roderick told her to read from Hagar. So, like, those two, sort of book smart, good counsel, keep them around. And Roderick gives Asha really good advice to actually leave the islands after the King's Note straight away.
Because if you don't leave, bad things happen to you.
No, the thing is, it's totally the same as Torig's story, because all of his brothers that stayed were murdered after Urig, whatever. The other guy gained control of the Iron Islands, all of the Grey Iron brothers that were there were murdered.
So in this chapter, I think we get our last reference to Aaron, or maybe the second last. Victarion has that conversation, and Aaron's like, I will go to the people, and we will rise up and cast them down, da-da-da-da-da. And then the next day, no one knows where Aaron is, and they go to Euron, and Euron only laughs. And, well, we can discuss this in the after show, the next Aaron chapter. But yeah, I was pulled for a loop on this one. I was completely surprised by the outcome that happened.
I do like the conversation.
Chapter from TWOW, so this is a complete surprise. Okay, so my money on having not read it is that Aaron actually did get away and is hiding, and Euron laughed because, oh, he's scared. He's so scared of me, he ran away. That's my guess.
Did you guys, sorry, that just reminded me, but did you guys, when you did the Asha chapter, did you talk about, like, what these 3 chapters reveal, the linear order, is how Asha's like, she kisses Christopher Botley and is like, you're a genius, because there is a way to undo the Kingsman. There's historical precedent because Theon wasn't there, and there in the linear order you see the correlation with this Victarion chapter as well, and his conversation with Aaron about undoing it.
Yeah, and how Aaron says that we'll cast Euron down, and Victarion's like, no, we can't. You crowned him through the King's Moot. He's in place. You can't take him down.
It makes me wonder if Aaron just meant like by brute force, or if he also remembered that precedent as well.
I think my takeaway is that Aaron meant it by brute force with the people, like with the common folk, whereas Asha's coming through it through Theon as a backdoor in, because I believe as far as Aaron, Euron, and Victarion are concerned, don't they believe Theon's dead?
I guess.
There hasn't been word from him in a while, so I think most do just assume he's dead.
Maybe he's just, religious zealotry will win the day. That no ungodly man can sit the C7 chair. Dumb. The whole thing is so dumb. Like, they're all morons, and I don't care about a single fucking one of them except for Asha. A little bit.
Cersei was right. She's like, Robert should have just made an island of their skulls and just been done with it. So I wouldn't have to read about them.
And honestly, like, I don't agree with Cersei on a lot, but that is so true, and just super buffoonery. It's like, so this didn't, and it's not just his rule that they threatened. This is not the first time. Have you learned nothing from your predecessors? What the fuck? Just raise it. Push the reset button on that whole region.
I'm just exaggerating my point, but I really do think something more should have been done to temper the Ironborn, because they only make sense in a fantasy novel setting. Like, they haven't, their economy doesn't make sense. Their culture doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know how they sustain themselves.
And I think they sustain themselves by being hypocrites and trading, even though their motto is, well, it's about paying the iron price. So they don't buy their jewelry, but I think they buy all sorts of other things.
I wanted to mention this earlier. I wonder if, like, they make their thralls handle all transactions because it's beneath them, so technically they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Or their wives, maybe.
Yeah.
I also love the whole, like, well, we don't have slaves. We've got thralls, but not chattel.
But they're better.
I thought it very interesting that the thralls, that they might be enslaved, but their children won't be, provided that they are given to the ground god, so baptized in salt water. So I found that very, very interesting. So in other words, the population of the Iron Islands, the free population, should always be increasing, but because they're so stupid and die so often, it probably keeps a constant.
Depends how many new thralls are being brought in, how the reading's going, I would guess. Yeah.
Because you constantly have all your menfolk off dying. But the thing is, men can have hundreds or thousands of children, provided there are enough women, but women, like, I think the most in history has been like 27 or 28, like the high 20s for a single woman.
Oh my god, fuck that.
I do like Victarion and Euron's conversation. It's really good dialogue.
Yeah, Euron has some really nice lines. I wrote some of them down, and he talks about how he killed one of the warlocks and fed to the other three, and he says, "Men are meat." And I'm like, damn, that's dark.
I like how you're just like, damn, and I'm just like, you're in love.
He's really good. Messed up. It's
very Lovecraftian in his wording.
He is very Lovecraftian.
With it, I loved that he had it that initially the other warlocks refused to eat it, but just kept them around starving for a long enough time that they did eventually eat their fellow warlock. Brutal. I enjoy it way too much.
So,
my favorite line is when
I can't wait to see how long it takes for Euron to drop his facade as being such a good ruler and to go back to doing what he really enjoys, torturing people, because I bet you as soon as that happens, all of the captains will jump ship for Theon when he comes back, or like anyone else.
Yeah, there has to be a point of disillusionment
Because at the moment, Euron's playing them all for fools, but I don't think it'll last very long. I think he'll cement his position, and then he'll drop it all.
I wonder if it will be a point, if there will be a point where they turn on him, or where they get to a point where it gets to the point where he achieves the height of power that he wants, and then they realize, oh, they've been played, but it's too late, and then they die.
Oh, we've made a terrible mistake. Oops.
We backed the wrong pony.
Oopsie. My bad, guys. Sorry. Oh my.
I like the Greyjoy characters, I just think most of them are idiots.
The Greyjoy characters that we get the point of views of are great. Everyone else are the lowest common denominator.
I don't know if I'd call Victarion great, but I like reading his chapters because there's this element of dark comedy going on where he just doesn't realize how dumb he is, and that makes his chapters fun.
I love how in this chapter, at the start of the fight on the ship, he's just like, oh man, I wasn't made to parade before people and make them follow me. I was made to fight like this. And I'm just like, why didn't you just fight them on the goddamn Kingsgrave then? Duh. All your men are there. Have them choose sides then. And have a
I like it when he throws Talbot Seri into the water, and then he's like, oh crap, he was worth a good ransom. And then he's just sunk to the bottom of the sea. I'm like, yeah, nice job.
Oh, I loved how, afterwards he's like, yeah, did anyone fish out the night? And they're all like, what night? And he's just like, oh, shit. So stupid. Yeah.
So dumb.
But in saying that, I really liked how he respected Talbot Seri as a foe for being brave enough to wear full armor on a ship where most of the people, 9 out of 10, don't wear armor, and the 10th person just wears a scaled shirt. And that...
You can see the advantage it gives Victarion.
Mm-hmm. Because... Wait, no. Talbot's sword cut through his gauntlet.
Well,
no advantage.
As long as you're not dumb enough to grab swords, armor's great.
No. Someone does hit Victarion in the head, but his helmet saves him, otherwise he'd be dead.
His thick skull took no damage.
I know. He doesn't even have a headache afterwards, and, his helmet's not even dented. I'm really upset by that. Okay, so, seriously though, do we have anything more to say about Victarion in this chapter?
I just wanted to touch on the fact that this is the chapter where Victarion gets the mission to go to Meereen.
Yeah.
And bring Daenerys and her dragons back to Euron. So, that, I remember reading it.
And I'll take her for myself.
Of course you will, because...
Not a great plan.
This has been the worst deals in the history of deals. It doesn't make any sense. Why do you think that you're going to outsmart a brother who you have never outsmarted in your entire life?
I know, and I just feel like it's so, so if the things you guys were theorizing about the Dusky Woman being a spy are true as well, sort of Euron's Kyra, he's setting him up. It's just, it's also frustrating.
I don't trust her, but I don't know what her goal is. I don't believe, there's some really far out theories the the Dusky Woman is Euron or the Dusky Woman is so-and-so. I do believe you shouldn't trust her, but I don't know to what extent, like how, like who she's working for.
Oh, you mean more of like a magically bound thrall of his?
You know, like some people have like really, really weird tinfoil theories about who she is, but I just believe I try not to overthink these books because it's not worth it. But for me, my gut thing is huh?
You don't think overthinking these books is worth it? What are you even doing here?
I mean, like, people have like 10-page theories for like one character, and I'm like, you have way too much time on your hands.
Like
man.
one line is a whole subreddit. Like,
yes.
I could totally go to town analyzing Sansa's character. Like, just wait for it's gonna be great.
Well, for some characters, it really is worth it because they explore a lot of different themes, a lot of different like real world issues. But like for the Dusky Woman, my intake is like, don't trust her.
Agreed. Thank you for listening to our episode, and if you'd like to continue on with us because you enjoyed this, thank you. And so if you're reading along at home with the reread, the next one will cover from the 1st of May to the 3rd of May 300. Those chapters are Tyrion 7 from Dance Ariane 2, also known as The Princess in the Tower from Feast, and Brienne 7 from Feast. If you'd like to get involved, you can find us and get involved on the forums of A Podcast of Ice and Fire. You can just Google that and it'll show up online. Makes it very easy. So if you'd like to get involved, you can do it that way. And if you'd like to comment on the video, because you're probably watching it on YouTube, let's be honest, feel free. And also like it. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.
Watch it on YouTube.
Because let's be honest.
Smash that like button. Turn on notifications.
Tell your friends. It's really important we tell as many people as possible because it's a really, really fun thing to do.
And click that bell icon so you never miss an update. There you go.
Whoa, what the fuck just happened?
All I could think of, though, with those shrubs was, I don't know if you've ever been paintballing, but there's those people that wear those big giant moss things, and I could not stop thinking about paintball, and like,
No,
I don't know. You guys were all like making these literary connections, and I'm like, paintball.
I love paintball. Paintball's great.
You say that, and I've seen like the actual army ones, and like,
Oh.
Yeah, it's usually more so the camo gear.
Yeah. No, but like they also have ones that literally look like grass men suits. Yeah. And I've seen those ones. And those ones are like, man, that's dedication.
But yeah, very innovative.
I would have liked to see this on like the screen because like it sounds terrifying, but like you'd have to do this really well on a show or something, or it might look very silly, just like people with like leaves on them. And
it's something that you can't really do unless it's like animated, because I feel like the movement and the way it's described is just so fantastical that you can't visualize it in real life. I don't know.
You have to have incredibly talented actors who are very dedicated, or you actually go to the military and the people who do that in real life and ask them to do it for what you're filming.
Yeah.
Because if you don't get it right, you get that scene from the Hunger Games where PETA is a tree.
Oh,
is that the one when she like steps on him?
Oh my god.
Yes.
Oh my god.
That took me out of the movie so hard.
The dumbest thing I've ever seen.
But he can decorate cakes. Of course it blends in.
The thing is, like, you can see your cake, you can't see your goddamn face, man.
That was so goofy. Oh, I'll be quiet now.
Oh, Johnny. Oh, Johnny, Johnny, John.
let's move on to Jon, if everyone's ready for that. So, okay, quick note. Does anybody want to read it, or I can read the summary if no one wants to read it?
Seems unanimous. We're all cowards, but you say that.
Okay, I don't have a choice to be. Jon 7, this takes place from the 29th to the 30th of April, and I'll be reading our chapter summary, because the person who was meant to be here unfortunately was unable to make it. So this is courtesy of a wiki of Ice and Fire. So thank you for having things on the internet. With the hounds being useless, Ghost has led the party to the body of 2 rangers. The area makes both the hounds and the horses nervous, and even Jon feels uncomfortable. So Jeremy Riker identifies the bodies as Othor and Jafer Flowers, 2 of Benjen Stark's men. It was Jafer's right hand that Ghost brought to Jon in the Weirwood Grove. The corpse's remaining hand is as black as the cloak he wears. Both of the corpses have the same pale skin, black hands, and staring blue eyes. Yes? Am I reading the right chapter or the wrong chapter?
I think you're reading chapter 7 of the first book.
Yeah, that's...
Thank you. That would have been even more embarrassing if I kept going. Okay. Let me find the actual one. I thought it was...
Here, I have the Tower of the... Oh, never mind. Tower of the Hand does not have the summary.
They don't. I know, I was...
Yeah, Tower of the Hand gets lazy at this point.
In my notes, delete massive letters. No one will ever know about this.
No, that was great. You should leave it.
No, it was really bad.
Aftershow.
Just like, person wasn't here, stop reading the wrong chapter. No, that's not right. What are you doing? Okay. So, Jon 7 of the Dance with Dragons, take 2. A respite at the falling snow motivates Jon to range beyond the wall, leading the new recruits of the Night's Watch, who followed the old gods to the same grove of weirwoods in the haunted forest where he and Sam swore their vows. Scouting ahead of them go Tom Barleycorn, Big Little, what even? Sorry. And Luke of the Longtown. There are 6 new recruits: Harith the Horse from Molestown, Araned Emmerich from Fair Isle, Saturn from Old Town, and the Wildlings, Leathers and Jax. Of the 63 Wildlings that Jon invited to join the Watch, Leathers and Jax are the only 2 who have accepted so far. Among the other Wildlings that have come to the Wall, 19 girls and women were sent to Harden's Tower to avoid trouble with the men in Castle Black. Their presence makes the men uneasy, and there has already been an incident. The Spearwives know how to defend themselves and their girls, and 3 men had to be locked in ice cells after the incident. Jon means to garrison Deep Lake, Sable Hall, and Long Barrow with wildlings under command of officers of the Night's Watch, and to choose an almost completely female contingent for Long Barrow in order to avoid future harassment. Iron Emmett and Dolores Ed will be Long Barrow's commander and chief steward. Other wildlings are also a cause of tension and incidents within the Brothers of the Night's Watch, most noticeably Halleck and his followers. Jon is worried that the Thenns may blame him for the death of Stir. This is where we need Patrick to tell me how to say it. Or anyone, really.
I say steer, but...
Steer? Okay. Jon is also worried that the Thenns may blame him for the death of Steer. Tom Barleycorn finds a small group of wildlings, including a child and his mother, a Thenn, a Hornfoot, and a giant in the Weirwood Grove. With the advantage of surprise and an effort at diplomacy from Leathers, they succeed in avoiding a fight and even convince the survivors to return to Castle Black with them. The recruits swear their vows in the presence of the wildlings. As he hears the verse about guarding the realms of men, Jon realizes that his duties involve protecting the wildlings as well as any other men. They return to Castle Black, bringing 2 wildling corpses they found with them. Jon consigns the corpses to the ice cells and receives a letter from Stannis, learning that he succeeded at taking Deepwood Motte and received support from various northern clans and houses along the way, including survivors from the battle at Winterfell. His troops now number 5,000 and growing. Stannis has also learned that Ramsay Bolton means to marry Arya in Winterfell and promises Jon to save her life if he can. He means to have the help of Arnulf Karlstark and Mors Umber at his attempt to conquer Winterfell. Jon wonders if Arya could have escaped without Stannis' help, as predicted by Melisandre. He also wonders if Roose Bolton could be lying about having Arya in order to bait Stannis, and thinks about Mance Rayder and the 6 Spearwives who went with him to rescue Arya. Then.
It kind of is that same chapter from the first book, to be honest.
Actually, to be honest, they might be the same chapters. Not the same chapters, but the one where Jon swears his vow. No, it's
because that's why they were beyond the wall, right? They were going to swear their vows, and that's when they found Jafer and Arthur.
I think it's one chapter on from it's one chapter on. This is the chapter summary I was reading is the one that they first fight the Whites, so it should be one chapter.
You should do it in full, just see if anybody notices.
No, let's not do that. Could you imagine if I put it in and then people start commenting and they're just like, that's not the right chapter, what are you doing? And then I cut to the other one and they just leave all the comments there and the angry hate. And it's just like, yeah, no, let's not put ourselves through that.
And I thought you were the brave one.
It's brave one in reading the synopsis, but no need. No need to bait the angry hordes.
I try not to overthink these books because it's not worth it. But for me, my gut thing is
You don't think overthinking these books is worth it? What are you even doing here?
Is this ghost or is this me? Am I sensing it better or?
I think you got cut off there towards the end.
Does this always happen? Okay. I'm making it so that
you're breaking up.
I don't want to break up.
Go over that part.
Okay.
We're losing her.
It's like only when you go to say something, though. That's the best part about it.
No, you're good, I think.
Okay. My phone locked itself and I'm hotspotting off my phone, so maybe that.
Oh, and you're gone again.
Oh, God.
Hello. Why are you all laughing?
I don't know why it's so funny.
That was just like such a concise whisper. I don't know. That was just.
It's sort of like anytime like you go to say like anything which isn't related, like it works perfectly fine. Then anytime you go to say something that is, like cuts out, and that's a bit funny. Sorry.
You're so mean. Okay, so I'm no longer hotspotting off my phone. I'm using my home internet. If it gets janky again, please tell me, and I'll see what I can do. Oh, that makes me so sad. Okay.
It just wants you spouting nonsense.
Apparently.
Oopsie. Well, speaking of that, I know I missed it, but I had one huge note. It was like on my notepad in big bold letters. I was like, listening to Roydo describe their sex was fucking brutal.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, but it was like particularly graphic. God rest him.
Yeah. R.I.P.D.
I'm sad that he passed away, but I'm not sad that he won't be.
Oh my God.
I feel you, Hannah. I wanted to say that. I'm glad you said it before me.
Yeah, you can always count on me to say something appalling.
But I'll also be doing the future books.
Come to anybody. And I'm glad he had a nice life, but having him not be firing blood was like, thank you, God.
I'm the only person that likes his voice.
He
I
just
find him pleasant.
I think it's like characterization and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
his voices, like, for the characters are just, when he does, like, the girls, is so uncomfortable to listen to.
They all sound like really old women.
Yeah, and also he's not consistent in, like, the name pronunciation, and that drives me crazy, even though I'm not even consistent in the name pronunciation. But I just feel like if you're doing an audiobook, you should be aim for consistency.
No, but as well, it's just like get George to tell you how he wants you to say stuff and pronounce stuff and be like, okay, this is my Bible. We are using...
Well, George doesn't care. I don't think George even knows how to pronounce half his characters' names. He just, like, writes them.
Weird. It's just like they look cool written. But no one's tried to say them.
I checked my phonetics book, though, for steer, and in Swedish, the R should be trilled, but I can't make that noise. So, yeah. I opened up to the Swedish IPA. I looked at it.
You mean the Magnar of Sen?
Yeah.
Oh, I was ready to stir.
I mean, I don't know. I was just reading it orthographically, but...
As long as we're not talking about John, we're fine.
You know, all of this is definitely after-show stuff.
We're
completely gone off the rails.
I forget where we were in John, anyways.
He's so boring. I don't blame him.
I remember where we were. It was me trying to say stuff.
It's guy love, don't compromise.
Still sniffing satin, smelling the sweet stuff in his beard.
Oh boy.
That was an interesting, little tidbit.
I know.
It's kind of weird. Like he's really like aware of satin as a attractive, sweet-smelling young man, and it's.
Is this meant to be fan service for the girls, or is this just John super into satin and is just like, man, you gotta be hot. Like, man, you gotta be hot. Like.
I think it's bait for slash fiction writers.
Yeah, but like slash fiction writers, I'm sorry, but like, I would not be surprised if there are many Stannis Davos fanfics. I'm sure there are millions.
Yeah, it can't be bait though because George hates fanfiction. He's like morally opposed to it.
But this whole series is just Farseer trilogy fanfiction, so I don't know why he's.
And the Farseer trilogy is actually finished.
Boom.
Okay, no, seriously, we are going to talk about John, we are going to finish this chapter, and then we're going to move on to the Victarion chapter, because we actually care about that one, right?
Yes.
Good.
What? Because you can't really not talk about some of this stuff. Most of these chapters inform on other chapters, or they're informed by other stuff, so it's really hard to, like, just stick with it. And then some POVs are just really just not interesting.
John. So...
We got derailed, and then a tornado came, and then an earthquake. So, you just reminded me of two things. Number one, and again, God rest Roydo trees, but you know how he says damp hair, he says damp fair. He pronounces it like PH.
I mean, honestly, did any of us know how to pronounce it when we first read the books?
No,
damp
seriously?
hair. His hair is wet.
I know. It's
when you all said
George
damp
is
hair.
so creative with his names.
Yeah, damp hair.
Literal.
Because
and guess what? Damp hair literally goes into the sea all the time and has damp hair.
The twice drowned. His hair is damp. Yeah. His hair is wet.
Doesn't he have seaweed braided into his hair as well?
Well, yeah, if it was wet hair, would you pronounce it weath hair?
Yes, because the words are combined. There's no hyphen. There's no space. I recognize it was a combination of the words damp and hair, but I thought he was being clever and making this new word. So
I mean, maybe, but I never did. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to call you stupid, Kevin.
It's perfect. I'm done. What's the phrase? Thick as a castle wall. I'll take it.
No, I didn't. I mean,
you know the most stuff at the moment.
You do. I mean, you do make a good point. It's a compound word that's not a real word, so sure.
What?
I was gonna say I could just hear like how we're talking about how dumb their culture is, and like, am I the only one that can just hear Patrick screaming into his computer? Like,
I know, we're dissing Victarion so much.
No, we're dissing the Ironborn so much.
We're dissing the entire culture.
You're dissing my culture. What are you doing?
I can just hear him like making snide comments about how the Danes are actually really warm, loving people. We just don't get it.
As well, Michael, we're Australian, so we're part of the Kraken cast, right?
Yes, that's us.
We're dissing like us.
Our own kind.
I know. I'm sorry, Duncan. I'm sorry, Donna. I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry.
Oopsie. Can you imagine a Stannis chapter? It would just be like moody. Melisandre. Moody. They'd be so short.
But we'd get more of the bromance between Stannis and Davos. And we could see Stannis pining after Davos and being like, I miss my lady love.
Oh boy.
I think most people that...
Right.
Not even fan fiction.
It's true, it's canon. It's real.
Oh boy.
Actually, I'm gonna search on fanfiction.net how many Stannis, Davos romantic ones there are.
It's guy love, don't compromise. Feeling of some other
Abby
guy.
saying it's a popular ship.
Taylor, you might never be able to get out of this hole if you go
I
in
never
there.
said I'm going to read them. I just want to see how many there are.
You can be changed forever.
Fanfictions. Let's go books and TV, and I'll combine the numbers. Filter. Let me... Genre. Romance. Where's romance, bitch? Thank you. Language. Whatever. Time range. All. Rating. All. Characters. Stannis. Yes, please, Stannis B. Characters. Davos. Please. Apply.
What part of Pornhub are you looking on?
I'm looking at fanfiction that there's 4 TV show romances, and on blah 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 Stannis B.
Oh my god.
Davos. Oh, romance. Why are there only 4 on here too? What? There's a combined total of 8 Stannises.
This one has 317 from Archive of Our Own. So.
Oh, nice. Archive of Our Own has all the weird shit. Archive of Our Own is really hard. Like, really hard to search on.
This is a sponsored advert, right?
If you would like to read fanfics, please either fanfic.net or Archive of Our Own.
Today is gonna be the day when the free folk fight for you. By now we all have somehow realized you're gonna get us through. We don't believe that anybody can stop the wildling horde behind you now.